Hello, and thank you for attending our webinar today, Higher Education Marketing, Search Engine Optimization, or SEO. First, a heartfelt thanks from me personally. My name is Becky Vardaman. I am Senior Digital Strategist here at Converge. I've been in the digital marketing industry for nearly 10 years, and I've worked for a Fortune 500 company, a startup software developer, also a local leading media organization's newsroom. So I've seen a lot of different sides of this, and I'm so excited to be here in higher education now. The reason that I really ended up in this field is because I am crazy about finding the real data behind how we can make better marketing decisions. My email is here, as well as my Twitter handle. Reach out with any questions or comments. A couple of housekeeping things today. You guys are all in listen only, so we can't hear you talk, but there is a chat box there in your GoToWebinar. So feel free to ask questions. We'll try to leave some time to answer those at the end of the call today. And if we don't get to them all, we can certainly follow up in person. And we're also recording this webinar, so you don't have to worry about trying to scribble down a bunch of notes. You can always watch it back. That will be sent to you after the webinar. So let me tell you a little bit about Converge Consulting, who we are as a firm. We're a next-generation marketing firm, and we really focus on using research, Google Analytics, inbound marketing, and digital and strategic communications practices to focus on how we can impact student recruitment and alumni engagement for you, basically, for colleges around the world. That's kind of our bread and butter, is the data-driven decision-making. We work with some really great schools from all across the country, and we're always looking to add more. So my goals for you today for this webinar, we're talking about SEO, Search Engine Optimization. I want you to know what it is. I want you to be really comfortable with it. I want you to understand how search engines actually work. And we get a lot of people who say, do I really need SEO? I want you to have a strong answer to that, both for yourself and for any stakeholders that you might have to talk to about it. As well as, I want you to understand the basic elements of SEO, what the process looks like, how you can measure success, and of course, what resources are available to you. So let's get started. What is search engine optimization? SEO is the practice of improving and promoting a website in order to increase the number of visitors that the site receives from search engines. That seems pretty straightforward, right? But to really understand what that means, let's think about the way that search engines work. I like to think about the web as a great big metropolitan city, right? There's restaurants and buildings and houses and all sorts of places out there, right? And they're all connected through the subway. They're all connected through this web underneath, if you will. Search engines use the same type of web to go look at all the pages out on the web, right? But they're links. Links are the subway of the web. So how does the search engine actually work? Here's a really basic understanding of it, right? Search engines use robots. Sometimes they're called spiders or crawlers. You've probably heard those terms before. And they creeper all over the web on all the different pages, to all of the apartments and diners and all those different places, right? Using that subway system. But they're using the links instead. So they go from page to page, reading the links on the pages and going to the next one. The spiders read and store select sections of those pages into a great big database. I don't know if you guys have any big Google data centers near where you are. I'm in Iowa, and we have several. Basically, they're physical giant locations that are backed up all over the world, full of this database information. A user types a keyword into the search term, and or a search term rather, into the search engine. So you do this probably, what, 100 times a day? Whether it's from your phone or from your computer, you search for something, and you get results. That engine will access those databases to find the best fit. So that's the really basic steps that go into how that search engine works. But that's awesome, but how do they decide who gets to be first? That's kind of the money question, right? That's why you're probably on this call today. Well, if you have your ear to the SEO ground at all, you've heard of the phrase algorithm, and you've heard about Google changing their algorithm. It's just Googled it quickly and pulled in some feeds for you. Just in the past, couple of years, there's all this talk about it. The algorithms is basically it's the math that goes into figuring out what will be first and what will be last in the search results for those certain keywords. They have funny names like penguin or panda. And the thing is, it's all top secret. We don't know exactly how this stuff works. Nobody does. Google keeps it that way on purpose. And that's okay. Except for how do you deal with it? What do you do as a marketer? Luckily, there are a lot of established groups out there. This is an example of SEO mods that do all of this work of keeping up to date on these algorithms for us. So this is SEO mods is Google algorithm change history. And you can see even this year that there have been a couple of updates to Panda, and there's expected to be another one yet this summer. But what these guys do is they go through and they test it. They play with different iterations, they play with different settings, they test different keywords, and they try to figure out what Google has changed in their algorithm. They reverse engineer it, basically. So as a marketer, you don't necessarily need to keep up on it 100%, as long as you're keeping up with the people who are keeping up with it. I think it's important to keep in mind when we talk about doing search engine optimization that what we're really trying to do is attract those qualified visitors who come to our site, engage with us, but then also convert and do the things we want them to do. Not all traffic is created equal. So do I really need SEO? SEO has kind of a reputation in some circles as maybe being a little snake oily, maybe something that people don't always see the end result of. The thing is, you really do need it. You absolutely do need it. And if you're doing it in the modern practices, there's nothing snake oil about it at all. Here's some stats just to kind of represent. 77% of search users choose organic over paid listings. Right, if you're doing paid listings, that's great. It's good that you do that as well. But especially for big things like purchases or maybe deciding what school you're going to attend, people don't want to feel like they're sold. They're clicking on those organic listings. About 60% of searchers never go beyond page 1. I know that's how I search. Probably a lot of you as well. 42% of all searchers click on the very first link of page 1. That kind of blows my mind. I feel like we're sort of, at least 42% of us are programmed. Either we're really good searchers or we just see the first thing and click. 80% of unsuccessful searches are followed with keyword refinement, which kind of plays into the next one, which 41% of searchers unsuccessful after the first page choose to refine their keyword search phrase. So 80% of people are like, nope, try again with a different keyword if they're unsuccessful. And 41% don't even get to the second page. They don't even try page 2. They do it after page 1. So basically, yeah, we need SEO. This is just a fact in today's web. The majority of web traffic is driven by the major commercial search engines. You'll see here, Google has the biggest piece of that pie. When we talk about SEO, you primarily hear people talk about Google because they are the leaders in all the algorithm changes. A lot of the others try to kind of keep up with them and do the same standard ideas. Google's the biggest. So if you're optimizing for Google, you're going to be okay on the others. And if you want proof, go to your own website. Hopefully I've got some Google Analytics advocates on the call today. We did a webinar last month on analytics that's available on our site if you guys are interested in digging a little bit deeper in analytics. But basically go to your traffic sources and click on all traffic. See what you have. I've never worked on a website that Google, organic, and or direct none were not the top 2. Most of them, it starts with Google Organic. If you're a really well-established brand, then you might be direct none, like a lot of institutions would probably be. But those 2 are always going to be your top 2. Take it one step further and look at how higher ed is using search engines, yeah, you really do need SEO. In a recent study, just the online expectations of college-bound juniors and seniors, what resources do students use for researching college? 67% of them say search engines. But here's the kicker. That same study says that depending on the type of institution you work for, 60 to 80% of higher education is not investing in SEO. That means that there's a real opportunity out there for colleges and universities to really get in there ahead of the curve of this group and these keyword sets, and hopefully really make a lot of impact without a lot of effort at least until everybody gets caught up. So right now we're kind of in a window. So let's talk a little bit about the elements of SEO. Yes, this is a wonderful little periodic table of all of the different things that you need to understand when you're talking about SEO. So it's broken into the blue and the green. The blue is your on-page SEO elements. And these are the things that you have the most control over. You can actually go out, or your technical team can go out and change these things on your website. That's where I start. The next set, the green set, are the off-page. Basically, these are things that I know we like to think that we control everything, but these are things that you need to have good, you need to earn them, I guess. You know, you need to earn your links. You need to earn your social and your trust. They're things that you can't necessarily impact directly, but those things you're doing on page can really help with the green section. I really like this diagram. It's from Search Engine Land, which is a great resource. And it also gives you little numbers in the top right corner of each of these little elements, which I think is great because they've ranked it basically. So you'll hear people all the time say, well, what's more important, this or that? They've given us a pretty good idea here. So let's take a deeper look at all of these things. So let's start with content. Content. I'm sure you've heard content is king, right? In SEO, that really holds true. The quality, whether you have a good terms research, whether you put those terms on the page, whether your content's engaging, and whether it's fresh. Let's look at these each a little bit more closely. Quality content. Value is future-proof and algorithm-proof. I love this quote. It's so true. If you have quality content, you're going to be okay no matter what comes down the pike. Google has the same goals that you do, right? Google wants to get, really any search engine wants to get the best content in front of the best users. They want to help that user find exactly what they're looking for. And that's what you want too. You want great users in front of your great content. So how do you do it? You provide value. Every different algorithm change that comes down the line, they're going to be moving closer and closer to try to figure out how to get to that goal. So if you're already working towards that goal, some algorithm change that comes down, it's not going to ding you. You're not going to lose points for that. So always default to providing value. Cyrus Shepard has some really good talking points down here around what this value could be. Obviously, utility. If it's some information people need, maybe it's some sort of scholarship calculator or information about registration, those sorts of things, the things people need on your site, as well as emotional response. If people go to your website and they enjoy it, they have a good time, that's valuable. Point of view, positive or negative. I love that because a lot of blogs are coming up that have been really successful in driving SEO, that maybe that blogger can have a perspective that's a real point of view about something that doesn't necessarily represent the institution. In fact, I read a blog on a regular basis. I never miss a post by this woman. And I disagree with her probably 50% of the time. I just really like her point of view. I like to read, and it adds value to my life to have that diversity. And perceived value can also be important here. Value doesn't always need to be a real thing. If it's about fame of the author or fame of the institution, sometimes there's a perceived value that you might have built in. So quality content, very, very, very important. It all starts with quality content. The next piece of this is research. We could do an entire webinar on keyword research. We could. But basically, the gist of it is you want to make sure that you have words that you're targeting on your site that A, people are searching for, and B, the SEO competition isn't so steep, somebody doesn't already own it, right? You're not going to be able to target the keyword Coca-Cola. You just are never going to be able to beat them. You know, they've already got it. So you want to look at it to see what kind of competition is manageable, as well as there's enough search traffic going on. There's kind of a gold spot between way, way, way too much search traffic, which means your term is probably too broad and doesn't have the intent that we're looking for with, remember, we want those qualified visitors. So you want it to be specific enough that you get visitors that actually want to do what you want them to do, right? The right visitors, the right content. But you also want to make sure that somebody's actually searching for it. That's a big deal. Not going to do any good if no one's searching for your keywords. And then there's a great tool out there called Google Trends that is this graph here below. It lets you look at over time, even down to the city level, if there's enough traffic, whether those words are increasing, whether there's more interest or less interest. So I find some really interesting things. And there are tools out there like the Google Keyword tool, the Google AdWords Keyword tool, is where you can get a lot of the search traffic information too. I will definitely, there's a slide at the end of all these different tools. So after you've got words that make sense and that you know you have good search traffic for, your content needs to have those words in it, right? So this is an example of trying to make sure that you have it in, you know, the title of the page. We'll talk more about what all these things are. In the URL, all of these places on page that search engines can see, right? So we use the tool, we use the SEO Moz tool for ourselves and with our clients, and there's actually an on-page grading tool like this, and you can see that it goes through and it checks for it in all these places. But you don't necessarily need a tool. You just have to make sure that it's in your title, it's in your URL, you put it in your meta description, in your headers. Make sure you have your words in your body and in your image alt tags, those places. The next element to the content is whether or not it's engaging. Google wants to send people to content that they like, right? That's part of their goal. Their goal is to send them to something that they think is cool, they interact with, instead of just bounce and leave right away. So bounce rate's bad news. Google doesn't like it when you click on a link in the search results page and then hit the back button right away and click on a different one. So a good place to test this is in your analytics. Again, jump out to your Google Analytics, go to your content, and click on landing pages. Now, I like to search or to sort these by the bounce rate. You can see over in that right column. So I have my 100% bounces towards the top. And then I can go through and make sure that my most important landing page isn't in that group. You want to make sure that anything that has a high bounce rate is something that maybe one or two people have gotten to by accident. You want to try to clean those pages up. But what you really don't want is a high bounce rate on your home page, on important landing pages, on important program pages. And if there are there, then maybe you can answer that question. Okay, well, what are we missing here? What's wrong? Why are they not engaging with this content? It's a good way to troubleshoot it. Google also wants your content to be fresh. This is a huge argument for content marketing. I know a lot of you are probably engaging in this, even if it's just as much as doing press releases. But Google likes to see that your content is being updated frequently. Somebody loves this site, somebody cares about this site, somebody is out there giving this site attention, and people are engaging with that content, right? So it's a great thing if you're doing any video marketing, if you're doing, again, press releases, especially if they're newsworthy something really exciting is happening, those are great for SEO. If you're doing infographics, if you have some great compelling blog posts, all of these things really contribute to that freshness factor. So let's talk a little bit about the HTML. This is the stuff that I mentioned briefly when we were talking about keywords and where to put them. So let's talk about this real quickly. You have to remember that search engines, they don't see like you and I see, and they need a little bit of help. We see a nice website. They see a bunch of code. So you have to make sure that what they see makes sense to them and translates to, yes, this page really is about this keyword, right? So that's why you need to put your words that make sense and what your page is about, you know, into your titles and your description, into your headers. Because those are the things that Google goes through when it crawled in that original crawl we talked about with the spider and the robot. Those are the things that it's grabbing and saving in that big database to look at and reference later. Another thing to think about when you're thinking about titles, just so we're on the same page. Your title, it's going to be that little piece of copy that shows up in your browser at the very top of the page or at the top of the tab, depending on if you have tab browsing or not. But it's also going to show up here in your search engine result page. And it's right below it is going to be your description. A lot of people are saying, oh, Google doesn't really look at the meta descriptions very much anymore. Google might not as much. It does still look at titles significantly though. But look at all the people who are going to see this. Real people. This is basically like writing an ad. Think about your titles and your descriptions as your opportunity to sway real organic searchers to click on you. Some more elements that you have direct control over is your architecture. This gets a little bit techy, but I want to make sure that you guys have some visibility to it. So search engines really need crawlable link structures. They need to, basically they need links to crawl around your site. Remember, they need subway tracks to get between the different pages. So in this example, Google comes and visits somebody's homepage, right? And it understands that B and E are other pages and it crawls to them because they're linked from the homepage. But you've got C and D out there in the wilderness that there's no subway track going to. The problem with that is Google might not ever find those pages. So it's really important to make sure that you're not just creating a bunch of random orphaned pages. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, yeah, I'm not going to do that, right? Obviously, we have a website and everything's connected. It makes sense. But there's a lot of other reasons that might happen. Google doesn't understand if a submission form is required to keep moving. It can't go through. The bots don't know how to fill out your forms, right? It doesn't understand JavaScript or Flash or other plugins that are unparsable. It gets really confused if you have code on your pages that say, hey, don't come here. You can actually drop a little snippet of code that blocks it from the robot, right? So if you're trying to link off to something and that's accidentally on the page, it won't ever get indexed. Google doesn't like frames or iframes. Robots don't use search forms. So if you have a section of your website that is built using search forms for navigation, it's not going to be able to crawl it. And then this last one here, links on pages with many hundreds or thousands of links. Google is all about speed. If I were to type in a word and hit submit and search for something and it took, what, even 5 seconds to return, I would be bored and I'd be on the thing. So they're all about doing things really quickly. And going through your site and looking at hundreds and hundreds and thousands of links on one page, it just can't get through it all. Like it's set to not get stuck in those sorts of situations. So make sure that you don't have pages with thousands of links on them. Another important element from the technical side is speed. Google doesn't like it when your pages take a long time to load. That's kind of two-factor. First, for the technical side of it, and then second, because basically you're going to have a high bounce rate. Because people are going to, remember, we needed to have engaged people. You want engaged visitors. Google likes that too. Well, if you get to your website and it's really slow to load, people are going to bounce a lot more frequently. So again, something that you need to keep track of and keep an eye out for is your page timing, which is easy to do, free tool, Google Analytics, under traffic sources, site speed, page timings. And you can see over here in the right column, I've got it sorted again by load time. So the worst offenders are at the top of this list. And again, you want to make sure that those worst offenders are not your most important pages. Anything that's over, 3 seconds, probably I'd start trying to optimize and figure out what's slowing it down. Really, though, I would want your site to be right around 2 seconds to load. You can see that the numbers down there at the bottom of the page. If it loads in 5 seconds, this website's in trouble. You're faster than about 25% of the web. You're not doing very well. But if you can get it up there in 1.7 seconds, you're faster than approximately 75% of the web. So, and things are getting better and better, obviously, as technology goes. So the shorter load times, the better. Let's talk a little bit about URLs and best practices for URLs when you're doing SEO. So the number one best practice is to employ empathy. And that basically just means think like your searcher. What would your searcher want your URL to look like? When you search something and you look at a list of URLs, they're right there in the search results in that green. So they actually go into deciding which one I'm going to click on. I want to look for something that, I can tell from the .org or from the .com or from the different file structures whether this looks like the type of content that I want to click on. So the easier you can make it for that searcher to say, yes, this is what I'm looking for with that URL, the better click-through rate you're going to have. And then also when they're on your site and they're clicking around back and forth between pages, I don't know about you, but it becomes second nature to me to understand where I am in that URL structure based on the URL, where I am in that page. It's almost a map. So having good empathetic URL structure is definitely an SEO best practice. Shorter is better, basically for the same reason. You don't want to look at a big, long, terrible URL. The shorter and more concise you can see that URL, the better it is for the human. And the better it is for the human, the better it is for the search engines. Search engines are always trying to be more like humans. Keyword use is important, but don't sacrifice that usability. Don't try to stuff. Don't try to stuff a ton of keywords in everywhere just so you can get them loaded in there. Be really, really careful with it to not sacrifice that usability and make it hard for your people to read, your real people. And go static. You don't want to have a dynamic URL full of tons and tons of parameters. The more static you can go, the better. And use hyphens to separate words. So basically, Google doesn't really understand special characters. Hyphens and underscores are typically okay for them. So you can see in that middle example there, they have university hyphened off. So it's actually pretty easy to read. Just as a best practice, I'd stick to hyphens. Underscores are probably okay too. But if you put in ampersands and spaces and all sorts of stuff, it's going to get messy. So let's take a couple of seconds and answer some of your questions. I'm hearing that some of them are coming in, and Kara's going to help me with that. So our first question, how do we do the research on keywords? We could do it. The question is, in case you couldn't hear Kara from across the room, how do we do keyword research? There are a lot of different tools out there, and a lot of them are free. Some of them are paid. And there's even more strategies, right? So basically what I usually do is I start with putting them through the keyword tool from AdWords, which is a free tool, and I've got it highlighted at the end of this. And start with, just come up with a list in your head and start playing around and thinking what could make sense. Because again, remember, you're working with real people, right? So you are better off than a lot of tools in coming up with some of those words. But there's different ways to do research. There's for the basic page that you have that you need to optimize, and this on-page optimization for things like, okay, this is my MBA program page, and I want to make sure that I know people are searching. Are they searching more for Master's in Business Administration or MBA? Which one should I pick? That's a pretty easy thing that you can figure out whether there's, more traffic for this, more traffic for that, and then run it through a competition tool to see what the competition is too. And again, we use SEO for our competition tool, which is fantastic because SEO is one of those companies that's trying to be on the front edge of all the algorithm changes. But there's also the kind of SEO, or this kind of keyword research that we're going to talk about down the line a little bit for off-page, where it's kind of a second step where you're looking for opportunities. So yeah, we want to make sure we understand what those page titles should be, but we also want to understand what type of content should we be building that might fill a gap that people are searching for. So that's a whole other kind of keyword research. And again, we could do a whole webinar just on that, but that's a great question, and if that didn't answer it for you, follow up with me afterwards and we can talk more.
One more question. Does freshness relate to specific pages or the site as a whole? In other words, does Google rate freshness of the site as a whole based on the overall freshness? If we have to refresh each and every page, even when the info doesn't change, that becomes an increasingly laborious task. What are your thoughts?
All right, I hope you guys could hear that. The question was about whether the freshness that Google's looking for is based on basically specific blog type pages or whether it's based on the whole site. If there's an actual SEO benefit to going out and refreshing every page of your site every so often just so it feels fresh. The answer to that is don't worry about going out and refreshing every single page of your site. You're right, that would be laborious, it would be tedious, it would drive you crazy, especially because your site is probably going to continue to grow. What Google looks at freshness on is on the domain level. So it wants to know that things from your domain, which, ours is convergeconsulting.org, is our root domain. So that main root domain, it wants to know that things are moving and shaking. It wants to know that new pages have been added, new information is coming in, people are out there cultivating that website, that root domain, versus just parking it, which some people do. They'll go buy a website and just leave it someplace. But yeah, so we'll talk a little bit more about history of a website down the line here. And I think that'll help answer that question a little bit as well. Good? Good, great questions. So let's move on to off-page SEO. Off-page are the things that we can't control, remember? So we can control them, but they're influenced by others primarily, right? So links, social, trust building, and again, that history, which I'll touch on, and the personal things that really are personalized to the searcher. So the first element of this is links. Links and content are the first of each of these groups, and that is on purpose. Content is king and links is queen. Links are our subway tracks. So the first piece is you want to have quality links. You want to have people linking to you that are good, quality websites that also have good SEO rankings, that also are influential. Don't go out and buy paid links. Please don't. Google is getting smarter and smarter, and that might have worked years ago, but now you'll be penalized for it. Don't hire somebody from Fiverr to go out and post your URL to 25 forums and blogs and spam you out there. Any of you who run a blog know how frustrating that is when people do that to you. It's not good practice. Google knows not to count that. So the rule for link building, if you are really concerned about quality links, which you should be, is the 90-10 rule. Basically, you should be spending 90% of your time building awesome, amazing, valuable content, right? And 10% trying to get those links out there to people. It's so much easier for that link building process if your content is killer. Another element of a link that is important in SEO is the text of it. That anchor text, you might have heard it called, or link text. Basically, if the link you see in real life is this blue link, John Way's custom design belt. I don't know why that'd be on your site, but if that's what it was. The code, remember, Google doesn't see the same way we do. We see the blue. Google sees this orange code. And it says, okay, yep, I see you're starting a link in that start of the link tag. I see that you want me to link to this URL. I see that you want these words right here to be the link text. And I also see that you're closing it after that. So it understands that we want those words to be the actual blue highlighted link. The cool thing that Google does is it looks at it and it says, okay, if I'm linking to your blog and I use keywords because your website is really about what you say it's about, and I use keywords to explain it the same way, it's like a pat on the back, a vote of approval saying, yes, this website really is about what they say it's about. So a lot of times you'll see brand names in that, but if you can get, anytime that you can influence that link text to say things that include your keyword, or have them, a lot of this will be done naturally and organically because someone will be linking to your MBA program and they'll link it and say MBA program, right? So as long as you have good quality content, this should sort of take care of itself. You also want to have a lot of links. I'm sure that you understand that principle. When I say links are important, you understand that a lot of links are important. But since basically the beginning of the web, or the beginning of Google rather, links have been counted as votes. So basically we want to get as many votes as we can saying that, yep, this is important content, I'm linking to it, I voted to it, right? Webmaster Tools, which is another free tool from Google, as long as you have your site plugged in there, it will let you look at all the links coming into your site. And it's a great way to keep track of them over time. Our tool, SEO Moz, keeps track of a bunch of different kinds of links. So basically you just want to make sure that you're getting as many quality links as you can. The next element of this, and I'm sure I've got some social media people in this room because everyone wears so many hats these days, is social. This is where all of that effort you're doing in your social media marketing can tie into SEO. This is a rather new element of SEO because social media really being a powerful tool for marketing is a rather new in the grand scheme of things. So many of you probably have heard of Clout. Now, basically what that is it goes out and looks at people's social presence and decides how important they are, right? So how many times are they retweeted? How many times is their content resent out? How many times on Facebook is it shared? How many followers do they have? How many people do they follow? What's that ratio? There's all kinds of things that go into this Clout algorithm. It's its own thing, right? And that basically is the bread and butter of reputation. Clout isn't the same algorithm that Google uses, but they use the same sort of thing. And they give you kind of a ranking. We don't know what any of that is. It's all in that algorithm. It's all secret to us. But Clout is the best example outside that algorithm that I can show you. So obviously Barack Obama is going to be a little bit more important than this Michael Tucci guy, right? Who could be anybody. So it's important to remember that when you're getting social follows and social likes, quality does matter. SEO does take into account, Google does take into account whether you've got a bunch of made-up Twitter accounts tweeting you that you made up yourself, or whether Barack Obama is tweeting a link to your website. Believe it or not, if Oprah were to tweet a link to your website, it'd be more valuable to you than if I did. I think that probably goes without saying. So we looked at the quality. SEO also cares about the quantity. In the same way that, not the exact same way, but in a similar way that links coming into your site count as votes, shares going out of your site also count as votes. So it's important to make sure you have those sharing buttons and encourage people to share from your great content. This will just help get it out there better. And the cool part about all this social and content marketing is that, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it all helps each other, right? So your social helps your content helps your SEO, and you can track all of your SEO with your analytics. So all of it really ties together if you're doing it all well. All right, so let's talk about trust. Authority and history are two rather new elements to the SEO scope. They are still debated wildly, history more than authority, about whether or not they mean a lot. And you'll see the people grumbling about the sad Panda update, and a bunch of people got hit by the Panda algorithm because of their authority ranking and those sorts of things. This is the stuff they're talking about. So what makes you a trusted authority on a topic? Google's trying to answer that question. They're trying to figure it out. And to be honest, the SEO experts don't really know exactly yet. They're doing a lot of testing around this and trying to figure it out, but it's so faceted, there's so many different levels of it that it ties into that there's not a clear-cut answer. Build your URL like this and it'll work, you know? It's about that whole big picture because Google's getting really sophisticated in their search capability. They're being able to really dive into all of the elements that make you trustworthy, even if you don't realize what they are, right? So the types of links that your site receives, they're probably involved. These are your quality metrics, right? The quality of your social mentions, those are probably also involved. We are pretty sure that engagement metrics, so how long people are on your site, what they're doing when they get there, that kind of stuff, how they're clicking around, that's probably involved. And also the quality of your content. And you can see how all of these things tie together. Obviously, you're going to get better links and better social mentions and more engagement if you have quality content. So if I have to narrow authority down to one thing, have quality content. Make sure your content is good. It's got value, right? So I mentioned some people got ticked off when they got their search engine results listings dropped after an algorithm change. Google's response was, ask yourself some of these questions about your content. They didn't tell you this is how we did it, but this is straight from Google. They said, okay, well, would you trust the information presented in this article? And if you say no, the indication is probably there's something there that they're tracking, right? So is the article written by an expert or enthusiast, or is it more shallow in nature? Make sure that you have people who are really excited and siloed about what they're talking about, experts in it. If you have duplicate, overlapping, redundant articles, if you're clearly doing some kind of same articles with different keyword variations to try to sneak in stuff with the search engines, they're going to ding you for that. I think this one's interesting. Would you be comfortable giving your credit card information to this site? Some of that stuff is really intangible. Think about what makes you feel comfortable in a website and why you would maybe feel okay with doing that or not. For me, sometimes it's URL structure. Sometimes it's design. Sometimes if there's typos, I'm out. So stuff like, think about that. And it's, again, spelling, stylistic, factual errors. And these are just some of the questions that they put on that list. There's a whole bunch more. So authority is a little bit wishy-washy, but it starts and ends with quality content. And let's talk a little bit about history, too. This will answer a little bit of the question that we had earlier about whether you need to be out there refreshing your website. It also is a question that a lot of people have about whether we should create our own new root domain for some kind of a landing page, or whether we should just create an extension to what we're doing currently, to our main website. So you need to think about it. You need to remember that the web is decaying. This is highly debated, by the way, in the SEO world, but my opinion is with these much smarter than me people. So basically, Rand Fishkin, his quote, think about the fact that there is this huge billions of page index for the World Wide Web, but only about 20% survive year over year. only 20% is sticking around, right? So by default, the pages that are sticking around, the ones that aren't getting deleted year over year, they're probably the ones that people love, right? People own them. They're putting their heart and soul into them. They're trying to optimize them. They're doing the content for them. They're doing all these things that we just talked about, right? So by default, they're going to be the ones that are created better in the SEO world. So just because you look at your search results page and see a bunch of older pages, things that have history, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're there because they're older. Just because they're there, it's more of a correlation. They're there because something else impacted that, you know? So there's not a lot of evidence that shows that the search engine results will pick an older site over a newer site. If you create a brand new, beautiful site, and it's done everything correctly, and the structure's great, and the keywords are perfect, and people are looking for that content, you're going to be just fine. And then Matt Cutts is the head of the web span team at Google. He's your authority, right? Go follow both these guys. They're both great for this, Rand and Matt. He's basically the guy, though. Matt Cutts is the one who stands up at the conferences and explains to all of the salivating at the mouth SEOs what's going on in the next iteration, what's coming next, right? So he was asked at a conference this question: does the history matter? Does it matter how long my website's been around? And his response was, we can't promise that it's not a factor, but if it is a factor, it's super tiny. It's a real small thing. We're just using it primarily in conjunction with other things to try to see what's going on. I think that last part of his statement, which you have to know is, I'm sure, deliberate because he knew we'd be asked this question, is very telling. He's saying that, you know what, we don't use it, but we could. We see it, we crawl it, we understand it, but right now it's not built into anything. I don't think that he means it as a warning, but I think that as long as you're doing other things well, it's not going to break you to start a brand new domain, if that's what you want to do. Hopefully that's pretty clear, right? Clear as mud? So let's talk, we're getting kind of short on time, and I want to make sure we have time for some questions. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly through this. But the personal elements of off-page SEO, it's more just you need to understand them. You understand that when Google knows things about you when you're searching, right? It knows what country you're in. It knows what city you're in. It knows who you are and what you've liked in the past, what you clicked on in the past, typically through cookies. Or if you're logged in, it knows a lot more about you, especially if you have a Google Plus account. And then it also understands social. So if you're logged in with Google Plus, it'll know what your friends like. It's starting to give recommendations based on those things. Here's a good example for you. This is me logged in to Google. First, I've set my city to Cedar Rapids. You can set and play with these things. And I type in MBI. And you can see what it automatically is already starting to fill in for me, right? It knows where I am. It knows University of Iowa is nearby. It knows UI, which is our URL. Then I tried it Denver. What does it do when I do the same search in Denver? None of those Iowa things. A couple of different phrases come up, actually. And apparently people in Denver are more interested in doing their MBAs online. And also it says programs in Colorado. So it understands who you are. It understands who your searcher is. So keep that in mind when you're putting together your strategies. So we covered a lot already. I wanted to simplify this down into a process that you can actually do and take steps at, right? So I would always start with the on-page SEO. Everybody we work with on this, typically they've got enough muck going on in the back end of their sites because they've got these great sites, but they've been, had 7 different owners and a bunch of different technical teams working on them, that it's worth fixing your technical errors. It's worth running a report on it. And checking out whether you have 404 pages, if you've got duplicate content, all of those sorts of things. Then do a little bit of on-page keyword research and develop a strategy. You want to figure out what keywords you want to put on those important pages, and you want to do them consistently, like your page titles and your headers, the way you refer to programs. You want to do them as consistently as possible so your user experience is really seamless. I don't want to go to one page and see that you're using acronyms for your names of your programs, and on the next page it's all spelled out, all fancy. You know, it kind of can be jarring if they're the same type of program. So as much as you can, be consistent and have a good strategy for that. And then get those implemented. Make sure you have all of your on-page figured out. So if somebody's searching for an MBA program in Cedar Rapids, you have MBA program on your website instead of just a big hole or the name of your institution. Or I've even seen people who created a bunch of pages and copied and pasted them and not changed the metadata in their CMS. So it's got metadata on them for a program that's not even related. You would be surprised at how much you see those kinds of things. So check up on all of your on-page and the things that you can fix. Fix your content. Then, for institutions, the next thing I do is do some keyword research around opportunities. Remember we talked about there's kind of two different ways to do research. The first one is, okay, this is the content I have. How should we best present it? This is the keyword research around what people are asking for and looking for, that maybe we can provide some content for them that they can find us because we can answer that question for them, right? Then go out and build that valuable content. Make sure that it's valuable. Remember how important that is. And start developing your link building strategy. You know, this is another one. This could be huge, right? We could do 3 webinars on link building strategies, I think. But there's a lot of different, you know, your content marketing and your social marketing all play into that. I've heard of link building strategies as simple as just developing a pretty good group of people that are in the media or in similar industry as you and sending them an email and saying, hey, would you link to this? Do you want me to link to anything of yours, right? So there's lots of different ways that you can go about building those links and getting good quality links. But again, if you have good quality content, getting good quality links is easy. It's a lot easier to ask somebody to link to something that's cool than it is to ask them to link to a PDF of something you've got that no one uses, right? And then, of course, we need to monitor and improve. We're not just doing this for fun. We want to be able to turn around and say, look at our numbers are improving. So I'm going to go a little bit quickly through some of these items, but metrics that you should pay attention to when you want to measure success. You want to make sure that you're looking at organic search traffic, because that's basically the reason that we want to do this, right? We looked at the original definition. It was to increase our search traffic. So in Google Analytics, you can keep an eye on that, and you can look at it year over year, month over month. You also want to look at links. The links coming in are so important that it's a good thing to keep a count on, right? The easiest way to do this, the free way, is the Webmaster Tools. There's under traffic there. You can look at links to your site when that's all set up, and it'll give you the full list of your content and also the links, or those people that link the most to you. This will also do crawl errors for you, Webmaster Tools. So that's something, the starting place is to make sure your crawl errors are as low as possible. All of this is, again, Webmaster Tools. You can just Google it. Google always places it first because it's theirs. Well, whatever. I don't know what the algorithm works. But we use, I mentioned a couple of times, this SEO Logs tool. I would definitely recommend it. It's the reason a tool like SEO Moz is, it's so great. Yes, it costs money, but it's really, really good for beginners and really good for advanced people as well. It takes you through that whole process, and they have a lot of great education. The education's free, but the tool itself, if you're going to plug in your site, is paid. And basically, it calls out the most important things for you to look at in red, the things that are not best practice that you're doing in the yellow, and then things that you just need to monitor that you're probably doing okay, but just you need to have a list of them in that blue section. So that's how we start all of our clients, is with a basic rundown of what's going on your site. Our tool also uses on-page grades for whether you've got the keywords in the right places. It uses keyword ranks, so it goes out and tests and see if you're going up and down for the specific keywords that you're targeting for. and competitive link analysis with, again, a bunch of different kinds of links that we can also plug in your competitors. So that's the real value, I guess, in that tool. Something to add, if you're doing AdWords campaigns, this doesn't work in reverse, but organic SEO can help your AdWords campaigns. If you have your pages optimized well, it'll improve your quality score. And the quality score and the bid are the two things in AdWords that decide whether you get placed, right? So if you can increase that quality score organically through organic SEO, you're better off on the long run. All right, a couple of takeaways for you. And just as we're wrapping up in the last couple of minutes, SEO is always changing. That's okay. It's just the way it is. The algorithms are always going to be updating. But the algorithms are always secret. And we just have to do as best we can as marketers to keep up with the people who are keeping up with it. The nice thing, though, is that Google has the same goals that you do. They want to get good content in front of good prospects, right? They want to deliver to the people what they're looking for, and that's what we want to. So valuable content is future and algorithm proof. I put 7 stars by that. That's the biggest thing you can do after making sure all of your site is structured properly is to write really good, interesting, engaging content. And the rest of it will take care of itself. So this deck will be coming out to you. So don't try to scribble all these down, but some of the tools we talked about today, Search Engine Land, SEO Mods, Mashable is a great place to keep up with it. HubSpot does some keyword research for you if you're a HubSpot client. AdWords, the keyword tool, Google Trends, and Majestic are all some pretty good industry standards, as well as our website we blog about SEO. We have a couple of webinars coming up. Just want to make sure that you guys know. They're all free. We've had a lot of people request that we redo our national trends in adult student higher education marketing. So that will be May 30th with Brenda Harms. And we're also doing an adult student recruitment secret shopping webinar on June 27th with Brenda. Those should be really fun. I'm excited to sit in on that secret shopper one. There should be some fun stories. So yeah, get in touch with us. We'll see if we can get a couple more questions answered. We'll stay on and keep answering for a little bit here. I want to be respectful of your time. But get in touch with us. Come out to our website. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Give us a call. We actually are offering 10% off to anybody who is on this webinar for our SEO services. And if you just have questions for me too, by all means, just shoot me an email and we can follow up. So let's see if we can wrap a couple more questions in.
Yep. The last question that I see here is that, do you recommend that we make friendly URLs for all of our static pages?
Friendly URLs for all of the static pages is the question. Do you recommend making them? Yes and no. If you can create, I'm guessing you're an iModules client. We should connect afterwards. But if you can fix the actual URL, it is much, much, much more beneficial. If you're not an iModules client, if you are, let's talk. But the friendly URLs are helpful on some elements of it because in the search engine results it helps, but you're not going to have any help once you get to the actual website. Because if I'm understanding your friendly URL correctly, it's basically a redirect, and that redirect will just send you off to that terrible, ugly URL, and then you'll be bouncing around it. And so that whole interaction of being on page and knowing where you are in the site, you're not going to get that. And to be honest, depending on how your friendly URL is set up, it might not even show up in the search results that way. So it's nice for your marketing effort, but I don't know that from an SEO perspective it really solves the problem. So we can talk. Any others?
Nope, that's it.
Wow. Excellent. We covered a lot today, and it's exactly 1 hour. So my huge thank you to all of you. There'll be a survey that shoots out when you close. Please fill it out. It'll help me get better, help us get better at providing you with information. And again, this will be emailed out to you with the full recording very shortly this afternoon. So thanks a lot.